So a little less than 2 years ago, Skechers entered the boot game, and Skechers making high-end football boots. What? So far, it's been better than I thought it would, but now they're here with their first really big upgrade in the shape of the SKX2, where they changed things on the upper quite significantly, meaning that it's supposedly at least a lot more comfortable. And today, I'll tell you what it does well, including the comfort, and also, of course, not so well, to hopefully help you decide if you should cop a pair of these or not. Because as always, I'm JayMike, and this is my review of the Skechers SKX2. So what Skechers have done is to swap the upper material from knit to textile, which means that they've been able to make a thinner and softer upper package. And to me, it's been a really good change. See, I actually really like the SKX1 upper, thought it was nice and soft and broke in well. But comparing it to the new one, it ends up feeling a little bit stiff and plasticky, whereas this one is just, it's so soft and so very, very pliable to the point where it just kind of falls in place around your toes and your foot shape in general. It just fits so very easily, which is crazy. Now the toe box here is actually a little bit lower height-wise on the SKX2 compared to the SKX1, meaning that it does sit a little bit tighter around the toes, especially for me, my big toe, which to be fair is a big toe, but it is a little bit tighter. However, it hasn't really bothered me because the upper is so soft that it just kind of stretches a bit and accommodates. So that's really nice. Another thing that's interesting is the liner material here, which is something called a Veil Q, which you might know from a lot of Nike boots, which allows the upper to have this really natural, very easy softness to it, but also has enough structure, meaning that the boot and the upper in general doesn't feel flimsy. And that comes in quite handy when you start to apply pressure to the upper, when, for instance, you change direction. And the vibes I'm getting from the way the SKX2 upper kind of behaves on foot is hard to explain, but I'm gonna try, because to me it kind of feels like a mixture between Hypervenom Phantom 1 if it was textile and Magista Opera 1 if it was thinner. So it's just a really nice, very soft package that I enjoy because it just fits so effortlessly and kind of brings out the best that a textile upper has to offer. Now, Skechers also changed the size and the width of the fit knit collar here, which is pretty nice, ensuring that it's a little bit easier to get on and just that it adapts slightly better to the shape of your ankle right there. And it's one of my favorite ankle collars at the moment, to be fair, because it has a good amount of tension to it and just falls nicely in place, to be fair. And because Skechers also moved the lacing ever so slightly more towards the medial side here, just tilted it a little bit, it gives you a fraction more of a free sensation around the first metatarsal and ensure that it doesn't really annoy either of the peroneal nerves, which could lead to some of the numbness in the foot. Same thing as the Tequila V5, but just a little less significant. And while that's great from like a comfort point of view, personally, I'm missing a little bit of that more evenly distributed central lockdown that you get from a central lacing. So that is a matter of preference. It's comfortable, so can you really complain that much about it? And speaking of the lockdown, it is a little bit of a mixed bag for me, because if we start looking at the heel, Skechers have actually hollowed out the heel counter here to ease up a little bit of the pressure on the heel bone, which is pretty nice and comfortable. However, there is still enough lock from the heel counter on like the bottom of the heel. But then as we move up the heel, it doesn't pinch, at least my heel, as much as I think it could have and as much as I would like it to. So it does feel a little loose in terms of the heel locking. But I'm gonna get back to that, because what Skechers have done to kind of combat that is to move the last lace hole a little bit further back, which is nice. And also, they've put these little sticky silicone dots all over the heel liner and actually through the entire length of the insole, meaning that it sticks a lot and it really grips your sock and thus also your foot, preventing some of that slippage inside of your boot, which to me is alpha and omega in terms of feeling connected to the boot. So while the heel locking could be better, I think overall, I didn't experience much movement of the foot inside of the boot, especially, of course, wearing grip socks and doing the runner's loop to kind of push your foot as far and firmly back into the heel as possible. Now, size-wise, I've gone true to size with these, my usual US 7, UK 6, Europe 40, Japan 25, and the length is absolutely perfect. The toe box here is probably one of the wider ones you can get on the market, which leaves a little bit more width and like space for your toes to feel like not free, but they just have a little bit more breathing space. And to me, that anatomical shape is really nice and cozy and feels natural, of course, especially with that upper. And width-wise, it should also do okay for most people to enjoy them, again, because the upper is so soft that it's just gonna fit well. Now, as for the touch, Skechers have upgraded the thin polyurethane film on top of the textile to make it a little more tacky than the SKX1. And the upper texture, well, that's been changed as well. So instead of having the rips from the SKX1 that had been molded, heat pressed into the polyurethane coating over the knit itself, Skechers actually engineered this texture pattern into the textile itself, allowing it, of course, to be softer, but also giving it a slightly more, should we say, natural and less firm feel on the ball compared to the SKX1. And kind of the feel I'm getting on the ball is a little bit Hypervenom, thinner Magista kind of vibe, which is really nice in the sense that it feels thin and sharp and you're close to the ball, but you also get that hint of texture and just a sliver of elegance, which I find to be really nice. In terms of the grippiness on the ball, it's decently tacky, I would say. I wouldn't call it grippy per se, but it just has enough stick on the ball that's evenly balanced to ensure that it doesn't feel as if it's slipping away as you touch it. And I think all of that combined with the slightly lower toe box here and the really, accommodating upper means that the SKX2 just feels nimble and natural and quite uninterrupted, uncomplicated on the ball. And what of the outsole, you ask? Well, it's the same. The midfoot here is on the stiffer side, which feels pretty stable and is a win in my book. And the forefoot has just enough flex to feel agile, but still has a good amount of powerful snapback to it, which means that the entire outsole feels pretty balanced because of the rounded shape to the studs here, but also has a little bit of nice responsiveness to it. I wouldn't necessarily call it aggressive, but it just feels, agile with just a little bit of hop to it. However, it's not all roses and balloons in Skechers land, so here are 4 annoying things that you also need to know about. The first thing is that I get a little bit of stud pressure from this and this stud when I plant my foot hard, which is not necessarily a deal breaker, but just a little bit more than I would ideally feel. And if you're the type of player that's looking for a really strong, secure pinch on the top part of your heel to really fixate your heel in place, the SKX2 is probably not the boot to give you that. And while for me, I can kind of live with it because of the silicone dots on the heel liner and the insole, I just wish it would have been a little bit more. And slightly more structure right there, I think would have done a world of difference. It would have been better. And I don't know if it's just me, but I'm kind of missing out on the wow factor, at least when you look at the boot. Because there's plenty of wow factor when you get it on, it's so comfortable, but the trick is that you kind of have to wear the boots to understand. And I'm not saying that the SKX should have all sorts of gimmicky things on them to pull people in, but it kind of feels a little bit safe and standard to me. And that leads me to my final point, the price, where I do think that value for money-wise is definitely more than fair. But if Skechers really want to make a big splash, and given that they maybe don't have the brand value to their name yet in football, I think they need to give people a reason to convince themselves to try them and actually see that the boots are great. So make the price that reason and lower it. Sell some boots. However, I do think that the product itself is there. It's a seriously comfortable boot that fits like a glove and performs really well. It's one of those football boots that I think everyone can just put on and enjoy kind of no matter what they're looking for. It's light, it's comfortable, it feels really nice on the ball, and while it might be hard to kind of categorize what is this, I think with comfort like this, for me, it's always going to be one of those boots that I can always default back to and instantly have a good time with. And yes, there might be some brand bias because it is Skechers, but I reckon that if this had been a Nike boot, people would be singing its praise because of the comfort and the fit. And for good reason. It's a good football boot. But guys, what do you think? Well, let me know in the comment section right down below. Remember that you can get yourself a pair of SKX2s in the link right over there. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the notifications on. And with those words, I'll be signing off. Cheerio.